She said their kids don't matter, but planned it legally? How long was this?
My daughter matters, yours don't. The room went dead silent the second she said it, my little girl's hand tightening around mine as her lips started to tremble. We were standing in the middle of my sister Vanessa's birthday party, her perfect, over the top dinner, surrounded by family, cameras, and people who suddenly didn't know where to look. My daughter had just walked up with a small gift, something she made herself. And Vanessa didn't just ignore her, she said that out loud, in front of everyone. Like my kids were less. I couldn't even process it fast enough, but my daughter did. She stepped back like she'd been pushed, and that's when my husband, who hadn't said a word all night, slowly stood up, pulled out his phone, and said something that made my sister's smile disappear instantly. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And said something that made my sister's smile disappear instantly. Are you sure you want to say that again, Vanessa? Mateo's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room sharper than a shout. Every head turned toward him. Vanessa blinked, like she hadn't expected resistance. Not here. Not from him. She let out a small laugh, lifting her glass like this was all some harmless misunderstanding. Oh, please, don't make this dramatic. It's a party. But no one was laughing. I could feel Sophia pressing into my side, trying to hide her face. Lucas had already started crying quietly, his small fists rubbing his eyes as if he could erase what he just heard. And the worst part? No one stepped in. Not our parents sitting 3 tables away, not the relatives who heard every word, just silence and side glances. That's when it hit me this wasn't a slip. It didn't feel accidental. Mateo didn't move from where he stood. His eyes stayed locked on Vanessa, steady, unreadable. Then he glanced at our kids, and something in his expression shifted. Dramatic? He repeated, almost under his breath. Then he looked back at her. No, you've already handled that part. Vanessa's smile tightened. And for the first time that night, she looked unsure. Mateo raised his phone slightly, thumb hovering over the screen. You've had your version told long enough, he said. A few people leaned forward. Even the music, still playing softly in the background, suddenly felt too loud. Vanessa took a step toward him, her voice lower now. Mateo, don't. He didn't stop. Then stop me, he said calmly, before I press play. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about what she said tonight. The room didn't erupt, it tightened. Like everyone suddenly realized they were standing in the middle of something they weren't supposed to witness. Vanessa stopped just a few steps away from Mateo, her heels clicking against the floor, her posture still polished, but her face had changed. The easy confidence she carried all night, it wasn't gone, but it was strained now. Mateo, she said again, quieter this time, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Put the phone down. This isn't the place. He didn't even look at her. Instead, he glanced across the room toward my parents. That's when I noticed it. My mom's hands were clasped too tightly in her lap. My dad wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. They weren't confused, they looked nervous. A cold feeling settled in my chest. Mateo spoke again, calm, controlled. Funny, you didn't seem worried about the place a minute ago. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the back whispered, "What is this about?" Vanessa let out a short breath, like she was trying to contain the situation before it slipped further. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was a joke. I felt something snap at that word. A joke. Sophia looked up at me, her eyes red. Mom, why would she joke like that? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because I didn't have an answer that made sense. And that's when Mateo finally turned to face me. Just for a second. Long enough for me to see it clearly this wasn't impulsive. He'd been waiting for something. He looked back at Vanessa. You really want to call it that? Vanessa crossed her arms now, defensive. Yes, because that's exactly what it was. There was a pause. a heavy one. Then Mateo nodded slowly, like he'd just made a decision. Okay, he said. Then I guess this won't be a problem. His thumb moved. Vanessa's expression dropped instantly, and this time she didn't try to laugh. Mateo, wait. But he didn't. The faint sound of audio starting to play crackled through the speaker, and every single person in that room went completely still. No one spoke. Not when the audio crackled to life. Not when Vanessa took a sharp step forward, her hand half reaching like she could physically stop the sound. But it was already playing. Her voice filled the room. Clear. Unmistakable. They're not going to get anything if I handle this right. Liana doesn't even understand how these things work. A ripple moved through the guests, quiet but immediate. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. The energy shifted from discomfort to attention. Vanessa froze. Turn that off, she said quickly, her voice low, controlled, but it carried an edge now. Mateo didn't move. I felt my stomach drop. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't even close. The recording continued. Is greater than, it's about legacy. My daughter carries it, hers don't. This time, someone actually gasped. I blinked, trying to process what I was hearing, what everyone was hearing. My mind started pulling at loose threads I hadn't questioned before. The way Vanessa insisted on handling things after our parents mentioned paperwork months ago, the way I was told not to worry about details, the way conversations stopped when I walked into rooms. I looked toward my parents again. My mom's face had gone pale. My dad shifted in his seat, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the table like if he didn't look up, none of this would be real. Enough. Vanessa stepped closer now, her composure cracking just slightly. This is completely out of context. Mateo finally glanced at her, but only briefly. Is it? He asked. The room felt smaller somehow. More people were standing now, drawn in despite themselves. Phones were lowering, conversations forgotten. No one cared about the party anymore. Vanessa's voice sharpened. You're twisting private conversations to make a scene. This is family business. Mateo's expression didn't change. No, he said evenly. It became everyone's business the second you decided some kids don't matter. That landed. Hard. I felt Sophia's hand tighten around mine again, but this time I didn't pull her back. I didn't move at all. Because I needed to hear this. Needed to understand. Vanessa shook her head, her laugh brittle now. You don't even know what you're talking about. Mateo looked down at his phone, then back up at her. There was no hesitation left in him. You're right, he said. A pausa. Then, that's not even the worst part. The room held its breath, and Mateo's thumb moved again. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. Glasses sat untouched on tables. Conversations abandoned mid-sentence, every eye locked on Mateo as the next recording began. A different setting this time. Quieter, closer. Vanessa's voice again, but sharper, more deliberate. If we position it as responsibility, it's defensible. There was a pause. Then my father's voice, hesitant. But what about Liana's kids? My breath caught. The room seemed to tilt. Vanessa didn't hesitate. Is greater than, they'll be fine. They're not part of this level anyway. A wave of murmurs broke out, no longer whispers, but low, stunned reactions spreading across the room. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. That wasn't frustration. That wasn't anger. That was planned, calculated. I turned slowly toward my parents. My mom's eyes were glassy, her lips pressed together like she was holding something back. My dad looked smaller somehow, like whatever authority he had in this family had just slipped out from under him. Liana, my mom started, but her voice didn't hold. I shook my head, barely aware I was doing it. Pieces were falling into place too fast now. The sudden updates to things I never questioned. The way Vanessa always spoke for them. The documents I skimmed because I trusted family wouldn't do this. Behind me, I heard someone mutter, "This is about money." Vanessa snapped toward the crowd. "Stop, all of you. You don't understand what you're hearing." But it didn't matter anymore. Because everyone understood enough, her husband had stepped back completely now, a full arm's distance away from her, his face tight with disbelief. "Vanessa," he said quietly, like he wasn't sure who he was looking at. She ignored him. Her focus locked onto Mateo again, sharper, desperate now. "You're manipulating this. You're trying to humiliate me in front of everyone." Mateo finally lowered the phone slightly, but he didn't back down. "No," he said calmly. His eyes flicked toward me for a brief second, steady, grounding before returning to her. "I'm showing them what you already did." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Mateo tilted his head slightly, then delivered it clean, precise. "No," he said. "I know exactly what you did." A beat. Then his voice dropped just enough to cut deeper than anything else that night. "You didn't just say, 'Our kids don't matter.'" He raised the phone again. "You made it official." Silence slammed back into the room. And, for the first time, Vanessa had nothing to say. For a second, no one moved. It was like the entire room was waiting for Vanessa to deny it, to laugh it off, to take control again the way she always did. But she didn't. Mateo stepped forward, his voice steady, no longer just confronting, now explaining. "There's a trust," he said, glancing briefly around the room before settling back on Vanessa. "Our parents set it up years ago. It was supposed to be simple, every grandchild included, equal." A few people nodded faintly. That part at least sounded right. "That's what I was told too," I said quietly, my voice feeling choosy even to me. "That it was already handled." Mateo nodded once. "It was. Originally." Then he lifted his phone slightly again, not playing anything this time, just holding it like proof until Vanessa stepped in and convinced them she should manage it, said it would be more efficient, more responsible. My chest tightened. I remembered that conversation, the way it had been presented like a favor, like something I didn't need to worry about. "She restructured it," Mateo continued, "changed the eligibility terms. Quietly, legally, on paper." Vanessa's lips parted slightly, not in protest, just caught. "And in that version," he said, his voice lowering just enough to force people to lean in, "Liana's kids don't qualify anymore." The words didn't echo. They landed heavy, final. Someone in the back actually said, "That's," but didn't finish. I looked at my parents again. This time, I didn't look away. "You knew?" I asked. My mom's face crumpled almost instantly, but she still didn't answer. My dad exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding it in for too long. "We thought," he started, then stopped. "We thought it was temporary, that it could be adjusted later." "Adjusted?" I repeated, the word catching in my throat. "You let her decide they didn't matter. On paper." Neither of them responded. That was answer enough. Beside me, Sophia clung tighter, her voice small but clear. "Are we in trouble?" That broke something. I turned, pulling her close immediately. "No," I said, firm, steady despite everything. "No, you didn't do anything wrong." Mateo stepped closer too, placing a hand gently on Lucas's shoulder. Vanessa finally found her voice, but it wasn't the same. "You're acting like this is some kind of crime," she said, but the edge was gone. It sounded thinner now. "It's about structure, about making sure things go where they'll actually be maintained." Mateo didn't even react to that. "I already sent copies," he said instead. She blinked. "What?" "To a lawyer," he clarified, "and a few people in this room who understand exactly what those changes mean." A ripple moved again, this time sharper, more decisive. "Misrepresentation," someone murmured. "Coercion," another voice added. Vanessa's posture shifted, subtle but undeniable. For the first time, she looked like she wasn't standing above everyone else. Her husband stepped forward slightly, his voice low, strained. You told me everything was equal. She didn't look at him. I handled it, she said, like that explained anything. It doesn't, he replied. That landed harder than anything else. Around us, people were no longer pretending not to see. Conversations started quiet, urgent. A few guests were already heading toward the exit. The party was over. Not officially, but completely. Vanessa looked at me, then really looked at me for the first time that night. Not past me, not through me. At me. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. I held her gaze. No, I said evenly. You already did that. There was nothing left to add. No argument she could make that would erase what everyone just heard, no version of events that could put her back where she'd been an hour ago untouchable. I didn't wait for anything else. I took Sophia's hand. Mateo lifted Lucas into his arms, and we walked out. No one stopped us. Outside, the night air felt colder than it should have, but clearer too, like stepping out of something that had been pressing in for too long. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Sophia looked up at me again, her voice quieter now. Do we matter? I knelt down in front of her, brushing her hair back gently. More than anything, I said, and this time I didn't hesitate. Mateo rested a hand on my shoulder, solid, certain. Behind us, through the glass, I could still see movement, people talking, shifting, unraveling whatever had just been exposed. But none of it followed us out. For the first time that night, it didn't feel like we were the ones being pushed aside. Because the truth hadn't just answered what she said. It took away the only thing she had to stand on. And she
Would
knew
you
it.
expose your own family like that, or stay silent and protect the lie?